If the melanocortin receptor is active, it triggers the production of tyrosinase. See? So now it should start fitting in for you, which converts the amino acid tyrosine to dopa all the way on down to eumelanin. Okay? With the enzyme tyrosinase, the product is pheomelanin. All right? So we know what happens now. All right? We know what happens. This is a much shorter shorthand, but you got the longhand already. All right? So, chromosome number 11. This is where the TYR gene for tyrosine is. Yeah, the other guy. The other guy. The other guy. And then we talked about the chalcogens. Selenium, oxygen, sulfur. What's that name mean? The etymology of chalcogens. Born of copper. Now we look at tyrosine again. What is the relationship of tyrosine to copper? Tyrosinase, the enzyme, is a copper-based enzyme that uses the copper to transform or to attract and bind those oxygens to tyrosine to form dopa. This is how we get. Yo, come on, man. Y'all messing with the God right now, man. That's what I do, man. We don't play no games out here. Okay? The 11th chromosome. Y'all already know the science on that number 11. Okay? This is why. God is in the building. Now, let's look at these genes. Okay? Let's look at these genes. Let's look at these single nucleotide polymorphisms. All right? The TYR gene dominates brain function and all physical characteristics, even melanin. No protein, no melanin, no acid, no life. I need y'all to get that work right there. Dopamine. Dopamine is a hormone and neurotransmitter of the catecholamine and phenylethylamine families that plays a number of important roles in the human brain and body. Its name derives from its chemical structure. It is an amine that is formed by removing a carboxyl group from a molecule of L-dopa. All right? Where do we get the dopa from? Tyrosine and oxygen. Okay? In the brain, dopamine functions as a neurotransmitter, a chemical released by nerve cells to send signals to other nerve cells. The brain includes several distinct dopamine systems, one of which plays a major role in reward-motivated behavior. All right? So this is how drugs are targeted to melanated people. Most types of rewards increase the level of dopamine in the brain, and a variety of addictive drugs increase dopamine neuronal activity. Other brain dopamine systems are involved in motor control and in controlling the release of several other important hormones. Now, another thing you need to see, the closer to red hair you get, the more efficient the sulfur ammonia cycle is. Okay? You quote me on that too. I'm the reference point. All right? And I'm showing you the documentation right in front of you. So it's not blonde. Blonde hair is not the end spectrum. It's red. It's red. It's red. That's why they had them old wars between the Irish and the European, like the Germans. Don't confuse like London or English for like a group of people. They're not. They just have a different language. You have the Irish, which is the red hair Caucasians, and then you have the Germans, the blonde hair. Everybody else is just a mix in between. Then you got later on, as mixes started to happen, then you got the black hair and brown hair Caucasians, etc., etc. But the pure blood Caucasian has red hair. All right, that is where the sulfur and the ammonia are at an all-time high. Phytic acid. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this. Black man's gift, white man's curse. All right, phytic acid, tyrosine production, vitamin C. All right, what does that have to do with alpha ketoglutarate acid? Very important, because you see the alpha ketoglutarate all throughout these things, and it's just like this little guy on the side that nobody's paying attention to, right? Look at the breakdown on the bottom. Look at the alpha ketoglutarate on the bottom. You see there's no nitrogen in the chain. No nitrogen in the chain. Once you add the ammonia compound, then you get glutamate. Or excuse me, then you get then you get the glutamate, and then glutamine. But prior to that, there's no nitrogen in the compound. So what does alpha ketoglutarate do? Protects melanin, helps create ATP, flushes nitrogen by binding with it, flushes nitrogen, breaks down phytic acid, and pulls ammonia off the brain. So, melanocyte dominant people do not have to worry about phytic acid. Okay? This is a crazy situation that popped up, and I realized that black and brown and yellow people all over the place were falling victim to this. You got to understand that to white blood cell dominant people, they see everything as an enemy. The sun is an enemy. Water is an enemy. Air is an enemy. Even fruits and vegetables. So they would tell you, the fruits, the skin and the seed of fruits will kill you. It's going to stop your body from getting vitamins and minerals. So you got to remove it. You got to do something about these crazy fruits. They out to get niggas. All right. So, no. Melanocyte dominant people do not have to worry about that. We do not have a tyrosine problem. All right. Tyrosine handles that whole situation for us. All right. And tyrosine production is evidenced by your pigment. So you don't have to worry about do you have it going on or not. Just look in the mirror. Right. So phytic acid deficiency. Right. Now, what's the precursor to tyrosine? Phenylalanine. Where you get that from? Bananas. This is why back in the 50s, they started early genetically modifying the bananas because there were various compounds in the bananas that was keeping African people from getting certain metabolic diseases and illnesses. All right. So just to go in specific, moderates your kidney and adrenal glands. A natural antidepressant destroys serotonin by creating light through the galactose pathway. Fructose, lactose, phenylalanine intolerance is due to weak TYR genes and a lack of healthy breast milk. So this is why everybody's being pushed when they have babies not to breastfeed, to go ahead and give them powder shit. Pun intended. Okay, it leads to weak kidneys and livers, and we're going to see what happens later on with that. All right, but weak kidneys and livers not only have mineral retention problems, but it also leads to epilepsy, and we'll see why. Because epilepsy is a ammonia-based illness, 100%. Okay, nitrogen and ammonia turn phenylalanine into aspartame. So now some people would say, "Oh yeah, phenylalanine is poisonous because it becomes aspartame." Blah 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 blah. Only when the nitrogen and ammonia get to it and turn it into aspartame. Outside of that, it is a positive plus in your body. Weed smoke depletes the adrenal glands of minerals, stopping tyrosine production. Got to be careful about this weed smoke. All right? Yes, weed been around for a long time, but it was used ceremonially. It wasn't just blowed every 5 minutes every day, all day. You got to understand why weed is pushed. Because when I was young and Redman came out with How to Roll a Blunt, like that just took over the whole streets. And when I put my mom's onto it, she was like, "Oh, that's like that Cheech and Chong." And I was like, "What's Cheech and Chong?" She was like, "Oh no." Then she showed me the Cheech and Chong, and I'm like, "Oh shit." Then I started doing my own homework, and I'm like, "Wait a minute. Why is it that every generation has to have this mainstream push to drugs, especially weed? What is it? What's going on right now?" So be careful. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Melanin synthesis and blood electricity. Melanin is one of the most discussed yet most misunderstood aspects of African physiology. Melanin production is based strictly on electrical stimulation and genetic predisposition. This is the reason babies get darker with time. Melanocytes are the progenitors of melanin. They are stimulated most directly by vitamin D and tyrosine during sunlight absorption and during melatonin circulation. The pituitary, thyroid, thymus, and parathyroid in particular are responsible for melanin production. The more electrons circulating in the blood and the faster the electrons circulate in the blood produces more electricity. This extra electricity produces MSH. This also stimulates the body's melanocytes. So, when the sunlight hits the body, right, that melanin stimulating hormone that's produced by the cascade of events that I showed you, where the photon hits the body, vibrates the enzymes, and the vibrating enzymes, proteins, etc., create another energy, and then the photoelectric effect. That was all to show you how that cascade events leads into MSH stimulation. All right. Melanocytes are located in every area of the body, especially dense areas like the epidermis, the eyes, the inner ears, heart, bones, and nervous system. Cheese has a particular type of tyrosine called tyrosine kinase. However, most Africans don't have the enzymes to metabolize cheese properly, and since they can metabolize sunlight, don't have to. This is why the Europeans are pushing for this cheese movement and aged cheese and all this. They trying to substitute different things in their physiology that you don't need to do. You don't need to eat fungus and shit like that to get what you got. You already straight. You already tyrosine loaded. Tyrosine is a highly electric amino acid, which is why it behaves as an electron donor in melanogenesis, natural photovoltaism, and photosynthesis. Tyrosine has a reduced role in oxidizing skin pigment, which results in a very short-lasting pigment synthesis. ORP, or oxidative reduction potential, is based on electron movement and storage. Remember, you can get that at CaminoInc.com, and we're going to have a full-blown Christmas, New Year, holiday, holy day sale at the 40dayfruitfast.com. So you'll be able to join the God Complex class at a discount, a nice fat discount, save some bread, and let's get it in. All right. Bowel production and cholesterol production are both aspects of the light body, thus are controlled directly by the pituitary gland. All right. And the hypothalamus as well, but the pituitary gland. Bile naturally destroys histamines and inflammation. Bile naturally destroys histamines and inflammation. This is why as soon as your baby is born, they try to get rid of the bile. This is why as soon as anything goes wrong in your body, they try to pull the gallbladder out, etc., etc. All right? And they're trying to terraform inside your body. Okay? We got to get this. All right? Hormones, endocrine hormones, exocrine hormones. All right? The difference between the two: endocrine hormones are secreted directly into the blood. Exocrine secreted into ducts. All right? So what we'll be talking about is those that are controlled by the pituitary. All right? So release from endocrine cells, long latency, long duration of effect, delivered via the blood, diffuse actions. Neurotransmitters, are released from neurons. And although they do the same thing, they provide instructions. Their manner of effect is different. All right, so the hormones go through the blood. The neurotransmitters are different. They kind of go directly to targeted cells, and there are receptors on those cells to receive them. All right, but you got to be careful because white blood cells got fake neurotransmitters and hormones, and it gets a little crazy. So I'm telling you, it's a full-blown war in your body. All right, the distinction has become blurred. All right, between peptide neurotransmitters and neuromodulators and monoamines, etc., etc. This is what I'm trying to get into. All right. So just to give you some science on the pituitary, because the pituitary gland is being shut down by these nitrogen-based compounds. Okay. So all of these guys here are produced directly by your pituitary gland. Your melanin stimulating hormone, very important to this conversation. Somatotrophin, growth hormone. This is why we're not growing like we should. This is why our growth is stunted, but also the growth hormone has to do with regeneration of tissues, muscles, and bones once we get injured. Prolactin it controls more so for women, breast development and milk lactation, etc., etc. MSH we already discussed, and then you got these other guys, luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone, etc., etc. They play a role in gender and etc. and all that kind of stuff. But come on down. You see control kidney function in red, highlighted, vasopressin, very important. All right. Now, look at these guys. Test subjects. What did they do? By manipulating the hormones, all right, they figured out how to actually turn male genitalia to female genitalia. You see? All right? Just by adding nitrogen and nitrogen-based compounds in and changing the hormone patterns. Okay? You start to see the penis shrink and then become a vagina again. So, very important to understand this science. Neuroendocrine cell bodies in the hypothalamus produce, releasing, and inhibiting hormones, which are released from the axon terminals that synapse on the primary plexus of the portal system. The hormones travel via the portal veins to the anterior pituitary. Hormone-producing cells in the anterior pituitary respond to the hypothalamic hormones by releasing or inhibiting the release of their own hormones known as tropic hormones. Tropic hormones travel through the bloodstream and regulate endocrine glands throughout the body. All of these things are regulated from this guy here. Bile, colostrum. All right, colostrum, ladies, is how your hair grows. Sex, sexual organs, sexual gender, sexual preference. All of this nitrogen is wreaking havoc on our hormones, muscular development, breast and lactation. The women can't get breasts and can't breastfeed, and the men are getting breasts. It's getting crazy out here. Pigment, stem germ cell activity, metabolism, okay? Alkalinity, immunity, organ development, bonding with one another, all right? Bonding, how we socialize, brain development. All of these things are controlled here. All right. So the entire cascade of hormones is predicated on starlight and water. Ammonia and sulfur thiols change the fabric of hormones and neurotransmitters at their roots, while white blood cells release cytokines which mimic neurotransmitters. Very important. Caution. Dick pills, all right, very popular now, like sildenafil, aka Viagra, are almost pure nitrogen. And I haven't noticed, because I try to experiment with everything before I talk about it. And I haven't taken Viagra. Let me say that. But I took like a Viagra, generic Viagra, and I tried a couple of the over-the-counter ones. I didn't notice an increase in performance at all. I didn't notice an increase in performance, hard on, anything like that. So just understand that this is an attack on your body's internal chemistry. Now, what I will say is a lot of times we incorporate sex and drugs, even if it's just weed, into our alcohol and drugs, even if it's just weed, into our sex. And alcohol and weed lessen our ability, our endurance, because it makes you more sensitive. That's why they say no smoking weed before getting a tattoo. It makes you too sensitive. So you smoke weed, it makes you more prone to having a premature ejaculation. And then the alcohol makes the blood sluggish and thick. So it just slows down your whole potency. It just takes away from your potency. So don't try to get drunk and get high and then try to find something to balance what you just broke. No, stay sober and do that thing the right way. And if your sexual partner isn't as appealing sober, then get a new sexual partner. You gotta figure that out. That that's you figure that out. So, all right. So let's try to move. I'm gonna try to move. Okay. So you should have this stuff. The functions of the pituitary and hypothalamus glands are regulated by the circadian rhythms. All right. What regulates circadian rhythms? The pineal. Okay. Now, let's get into some fun stuff. The horns of Amun. Yes, in your biology, the horns of Amun are the seat of the emotional information or emotional information integration, known as your limbic system. So you can look that up. Horns of Amun in your brain. All right. What are emotions? Emotions are the sensation of the electricity and the quality of electricity flowing through the body. Amun proteins. Amun proteins. Proteins that are produced by the Amun gene. You have an Amun gene. Regulate the hypothalamus function, thus control hormone distribution throughout the entire body. Yeah. Okay. This is where the horns of Amun are. All right. So I'm showing you on the left hand side in the brain anatomy, then I'm showing you on the right hand side where your ancestors left that for you. The pineal is a hollow piece of flesh carrying piezochromatic, when compressed, piezochromatic, which means that it releases different colors and images, pictures. That's what piezochromatic means. When it's compressed, all right, when force is applied, when energy, electricity is applied, pictures and images are released. All right, they are. Then you have crystals, which are called pinealocytes. and water. So that's what's going on inside your pineal gland. All right. Darkness activates the pinealocytes to distribute the stored information from the stars to the plasma. Very, 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 very simple but complex at the same time. DMT activates the pinealocytes to absorb and store information. This is where our obsession with the marijuana plant comes from. Marijuana plants cause the lungs to produce DMT that is then sent to the brain and utilized in the pineal gland. Okay? Up. Pineal gland book. What is that? AKA the Bible. Why would I say that? Okay. Well, not to spend too much time on this, but Bible itself just means books. That's it. So you have to ask yourself, what type of books? In order to ask yourself what type of books, the easiest thing to do to figure out what type of books they are is to read them. And the entire collection of books is based on a couple of key points. All right. The first that you need to know is Jacob, a guy named Jacob. A guy named Jacob saw God face to face, and there he called the place pineal. That is the first usage of the term pineal ever anywhere. That's where we get the modern day term for pineal. Our ancestors in Africa probably had a different term to refer to pineal, but that's the modern term we use. All right. Now, from then on, in fact, even before that, the entire book is about a special bloodline or a special group of progenitors of a special DNA. All right. That's all it's talking about is these people here. So now you could call it spooky or whatever you want, but that's the real science hidden in that book. It's people who have that special genetics. That's what that book is about. It's a genetics book. All right. Exodus 33:20. You cannot see my face, for no man will see me and live. John 1:15. God is light. Now, what are we talking about? The single eye. When we look at the single eye, that's a symbol for our moon. Okay. All right. I know. I try to stay science when I'm doing my science, but I like to go into the spiritual systems and show the science because it has a correlation, and we'll see in a few seconds. Why does a deceased person entering the temple of our moon after death have a pine cone attached to their heads and all of the original papyri? Western science accredits the body with 5 senses. Eastern science accredits the body with over 300. Dogon mystery. The Dogon said, our bloodline. See? Our bloodline. Something special about a specific bloodline. Now, mind you, a lot of the traditions that people in the Bible cling to as being Hebrew were practiced by the Dogon long before the Hebrew ideology came into existence. The Dogon said our bloodline catches matter with their pineal gland from Sirius A, B, and C. Now, why is that crazy? Because everything the Dogon has told us, even the most craziest stuff, has come to pass. The Dogon said our planet broke off. Our planet, first of all, they said our planet was a hydrogen crystal, and it broke off of a bigger planet that was a hydrogen crystal up there near Sirius A, B, and C. Now, that was ridiculed as pseudoscience, and to some of our less educated people, it still may be ridiculed until they open up a book and do some new research, right? Just recently, they found the hydrogen crystal. They just recently found the hydrogen crystal that this planet is made of. It's called ringwoodite.